I didn't notice the first time they forgot, or maybe I did, but I smoothed it over so quickly it barely registered. Work was busy, everyone had things going on. That's how I framed it. By the second time, it felt more deliberate, not intentional exactly, just easy to overlook me. This year I waited, not in an obvious way. I didn't hint or remind anyone. I just let the day exist on its own terms and watch what happened. A few automated messages trickled in, bank notifications, a discount email from a clothing store. My phone stayed quiet otherwise. I told myself I didn't care, and in a way I didn't. It wasn't about the date anymore. It was about the pattern, the way I was included when I was useful and somehow invisible when I wasn't. A week later, the invitation came through, not even a call. A message in the family group chat, same as always. Efficient, slightly rushed, like someone ticking a box. My brother's baby shower. At the cabin. The cabin I'd helped them buy. That part wasn't a secret. Everyone knew I'd contributed when they were short on the down payment. Not as a gift, exactly, but not something I ever chased them to repay either. It lived in that familiar space our family occupied, where boundaries were implied but rarely spoken. Below the invitation was a line about catering costs, a request for $200, a Venmo handle. No one mentioned my birthday. I read the message twice, not because I didn't understand it, but because I was trying to feel something specific, anger, maybe, or hurt sharp enough to justify a reaction. Instead, what came was a kind of quiet exhaustion, like I'd already processed this long before that moment. I opened the payment app. My thumb hovered for a second, then I typed in 0.01. There wasn't much drama in it. No surge of adrenaline. Just a small, precise decision. In the note I wrote, "This is what I've got left for you." I didn't wait for replies. I blocked the numbers, one by one. Not out of panic, but because I didn't want to negotiate something I'd already decided. After that, it was quiet. The kind of quiet that feels unfamiliar at first. No group notifications lighting up the screen. No side conversations pulling me back in. I kept reaching for my phone out of habit, then realizing there was nothing to check. It wasn't relief, exactly. More like space. Unstructured, a little uncomfortable. I started noticing things differently in that space. Conversations I'd replayed in the past lost their urgency. Moments that used to feel confusing began to make more sense when I stopped trying to justify them. 2 days later, I got an email notification, not from them directly. From the bank, there had been a login attempt on the joint account. For a second, I just stared at the subject line. It felt almost procedural, like any other alert. But underneath it was something more familiar. The assumption that things would still be accessible, still shared, still open. That part had already changed. I'd closed the account the day before. There hadn't been a big moment attached to it. No symbolic gesture. I'd gone through the steps, signed what needed signing, and transferred what was mine into something separate, something clearly defined. The bank clerk had asked if I wanted to notify the other account holders. I'd paused and said no. It wasn't secrecy. It just didn't feel like a conversation anymore. Looking at the login attempt, I imagined the moment on their end, not vividly, just enough to understand the shift. The expectation meeting a boundary that didn't move. I didn't respond to the notification. There wasn't anything to say. Later that evening, I sat in my apartment with the windows open. The air moved through slowly, carrying in the kind of background noise you don't usually notice. Distant traffic, someone talking on a balcony nearby. I thought about the cabin, the way it had felt the first time we visited after they bought it. Everyone excited, moving through the space like it already belonged to a shared future. I remembered where I'd stood, how I'd tried to picture myself there in the long term. It had felt slightly off, even then. Not wrong, just not fully mine. That feeling made more sense now. My phone stayed still on the table beside me. No new messages, no missed calls forcing a decision. For the first time in a while, there was no immediate pull to fix something, to respond, to make things smoother than they were. I didn't feel victorious. There was no sense of having won anything. But there was a steadiness that hadn't been there before, a clearer sense of what belonged to me and what didn't. I leaned back, letting the quiet settle without trying to fill it. Some things hadn't been resolved. Maybe they wouldn't be. But for once, that didn't feel like something I needed to chase.